Hello there, and welcome to day 109 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And today, finally, after... I actually don't remember when for which video was my Iron Man one, but after 109 days of doing the series, I finally get to talk about Marvel's The Avengers, or Avengers Assemble, as it was called in the UK. Not to be confused with, what's his name? Key and Mrs. Peel. Not Key, Steed and Mrs. Peel, that adaptation. But, yes. We are... What is this now? So this would be the 5th film in the MCU series, the big unification of the team, and the point in which everything would change, and the entire culture of comic books would shift, and of course it launched the cinematic universes and this interwoven style of storytelling was really sort of born from this. Now, frankly, this might be a fairly short video because if you haven't at this point seen The Avengers and you're watching this video, what are you doing? Go and watch The Avengers. There is nothing I have left to say that isn't a case of saying watch The Avengers. The Avengers is a great film. If you love comic book films, if you like them, if you haven't seen some of the all of the originals, some people dive in and out and watch different ones. But if somehow, inexplicably, you haven't seen The Avengers at this point, go and watch it. Like, turn this off, watch it, and then come back to this. Because, I want the view counts. But yes, phenomenal. It is... It's just, honestly, it was a cultural shift that really... I don't know, it really changed a lot of things. I mean, this is the point for me where I fully reinvested in comic book films and properties. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I remember the point at which I stopped caring about the superhero properties was Batman and Robin, which would have been late 90s. And of course I saw the X-Men films and I saw the Spider-Man films, but I wasn't invested. I never really particularly loved... The X-Men films are good for what they are, those early ones. And they achieve something great for the time, but I wasn't really invested in them. And Spider-Man, this is a terrible thing, but I've never been the biggest fan of the Raimi Spider-Man films. Not even the first one and the second one that everyone loves. I never particularly liked it. There was something about it that never really appealed to me. Even though I love Sam Raimi's style and his horror output is really to my taste, but those Spider-Man films for some reason just never did it for me. And so yeah, there was a long gap. I suppose the only thing that sort of kept me by was the Blade films, which I love. I love the Blade films. But like I say, in terms of the idea of comic books and comic book characters and the lore, this was really the period in which I tapped out quite severely, and I wasn't really that interested in watching them. As I've said in previous videos, I hadn't seen Iron Man 1 and 2 and the first Thor film. I don't think I'd seen them by the time I'd seen this film. The only one I'd seen was Captain America, the First Avenger, which I wasn't so keen on at the time. But, for whatever reason, I was convinced to see this because it was the bringing together of a bunch of characters and films, and I thought, this might be interesting. I mean, nothing like this has ever been done to this degree. And honestly, like everyone, it changed my perception of the whole thing, and I've been invested ever since, and have hence me doing this series of the rewatching, even though I have seen all of the MCU films. This is me treading ground, some of which I haven't for a long time, but from this point on, it will be films that I saw as they were being released at the cinema, as opposed to films that I saw later or came back to. And don't get me wrong, there was also the Nolan films, The Dark Knight, but I didn't treat those as superhero films. I treated them as, they have Batman as the central character, but they're doing something different with it. Whereas this is true, authentic comic book storytelling, and it's genuinely mind blowing, because even in 2000 and 2009, 2010, 2009, I think. Even then, this level of ability was just not. It's not that it wasn't conceived of, but when you hear that they're going to bring all of these characters and all of these high-profile actors and put them all into one film, and they're going to have the special effects to be able to carry this off, you just think, it's going to be a lot of characters sat round. It's going to be 10 minutes of special effects. We're going to have seen it all in the trailer. And again, it just blows you out the water. I mean, of course there are tricks. Of course there are things that they slightly play around with. There is lots of characters sitting around talking, but frankly, the level of animation, of CG investment in the world building, in the Hulk, and the Chitauri, and just the whole thing. It really stepped the whole concept of how you could create a quote unquote realistic portrayal of these fantastical concepts. As I said in the Thor video, you can do it in a fantasy world because you can step away from it to some degree, and you can build a world where we can suspend our disbelief because everything, like the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Similarly, I know Harry Potter is technically our world, but it's other than our world, with just hints of the familiar. Whereas the idea of amalgamating the real, setting this in primarily in New York, particularly with the climax, and then integrating that with, fantastical battle sequences, it's practically inconceivable up to this point, and that's what. One of the many reasons that lifts it. I mean, just to talk about the direction and writing, and yes, I'm going to very quickly do the thing which I've done twice before, which is Joss Whedon is a problematic figure in media right now. His reputation is very troubling. I don't really want to go into any detail about it. As I said before, I hope, if I don't know what happens, and I don't want to speculate. But if the things that are being accounted about him are true, that's deeply disappointing as a fan of his work. It's deeply disappointing, and it tarnishes everything he's done, including Buffy, Firefly, the Avengers, everything he's done. If these accounts are, like with many other directors and executives and all these people and actors and all these people that reports are coming out about, if half as much of what is being said is true, it really does put a black mark on all of their creative pursuits, and that is something that's disappointing. That being said, now that I've putting a pin in that, the directing and writing on this is so good and so well put together and so intricate. You have so many small payoffs and little lines of dialogue or funny foreground and background jokes that are called to and called back to, wonderful moments that even now I see new things. Like, I didn't realise that when Nick Fury says, "I bet you $10 to Steve Rogers that you're going to see something that incredible that you've not," Steve Rogers, of course, being amazed by the modern world. and he says, "I bet you $10 you're going to see something that you've never seen before, or something spectacular." And then later, there's actually a shot of Steve Rogers giving Nick Fury $10. And again, never. I've seen this film probably a dozen times, never picked up on that before. And it's little things like that, you know, and the fact that you have all of these like, actors in their A game, you know, really committing to this. Not one of them, I would say, you know, doesn't commit to giving a great performance, and you know that's what makes it work. And again, the dialogue and the directing style, you know, again, the three things, the three pillars, the acting, the directing, and the writing, just are brought together so well that each character has their moment. They have their moment of trauma. They have their moment to shine. They have a moment of humour. They have characterful beats that mean that each individual character, you understand their arc, and everyone gets a beginning, middle, and end to their story as part of this greater universe. Even Hawkeye and Black Widow, who of course haven't even had their own films, get these arcs. You know, the scene with Natasha and the Hulk is like a different genre. For a short beat, we get this horror film sequence, which so switches tones, but seamlessly so, where all of a sudden you have this character facing up against a monster, and it's like a horror film the way it's structured. And again, it makes you think back to something like Aliens, that you know, where you have the heroine trying to survive this creature, you know, and stuff like that, which shows the investment. I mean, frankly, people have talked about Infinity War and the idea that is it Thanos' movie, and I'm wondering on this watch, is the first Avengers film, is it Nick Fury's movie? Because, you know, you start the film with him. He's the one who directs the action, and sort of it's about him working out how to manage this group of people. And it ends with his narration, and so there's almost something to be said about how this is the Nick Fury film. And again, he just has some great beats and moments, you know, particularly there are certain lines, action sequences. I mean, this is Samuel L. Jackson. Just, you know, up to this point, he's had cameos in Iron Man films, and this is his chance to really just knock it out the park and show, you know, just how capable he is and how much he can just lead this. And I generally watched it going, well, what if I read it as a Nick Fury film? And it really does give you that sense of perspective on it. But all of them have that. They all do. You each character has that sense of, oh, they are the lead of their section of this film, and they have a particular arc, and you really do feel like they are individually spotlighted, but also as a team. I mean, that panning shot where what was it called? Like the circular, the orbital pan around them is, I mean, it's legendary at this point. Yeah, and that was something else that I think I remember being at the age I was, which must have been 18 at this point, or 17, 18, something like that. And just seeing that, and then seeing the giant Chitauri worm, whale, millipede creature as it flies around the corner, you just think, oh my god, that they've done that. And frankly, it's the closest to date that we've got Fin Fang Foom. And I'm starting to believe we'll never get Fin Fang Foom, but a man can dream. And so, you know, seeing something like that is just phenomenal. And the fact that, you know, you have so much lore, and it really is invested in the comic books. It's not like with the Dark Knight stuff with Nolan, it really tries to divorce itself. This is steeped in comic book references, in the lore, in the storytelling, and just paves the way for everything that is still to come over the next decade. So yeah, as you can imagine, I'm gushing about this because it's just great to revisit, and it's great to still love it, and not and it hasn't aged that badly. You know, it still looks great, and again, it's just, you know, this was a massive turning point. Recently, I've been looking. Mount Rushmores appear to be the phenomenon at the minute, where you know. So as I mentioned in one of my previous videos about the horror Mount Rushmore of directors, I've been trying to think of the. I've sort of turned over the Mount Rushmore of comic book movies for me, and at the moment it looks like it would be the Avengers, Infinity War, Blade, and the fourth spot's still a little shaky. Dark Knight probably, actually thinking about it. But again, the Avengers is fixed. That is for there forever, you know. And this is definitely in one of my top 10 films of all time. You know, regardless of everything that came after, and will continue to come after. And regardless of all the great classic films I watch, I just think this was like my childhood brought to life at a time when I genuinely thought I wasn't gonna care about it. But yeah, I'm chuffed. Now, I tweeted earlier that it's rather appropriate that that today of all days is the day that they release the Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings official trailer. I'm not going to do a reaction video like I've done a couple times, mainly because I don't really know much about Shang-Chi. It's quite cool that the Mandarin's in it, and it looks like a great kung fu Marvel kung fu movie. So I think it'll look amazing and will sort of be in its own little pocket. But again, at this point, this is another origin story in a, you know, very in deep series. So, like I say, there's not a great deal I have to say about that particular trailer. And today, I finally caught up on the latest episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and of course that's just been rattling on, and it's just great. So it's been a rather Marvel heavy evening for me, and yeah, and again, it really was brought to life by this, and yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and please share the video. You know, I'm definitely trying to get some of the videos out there. I've put playlists together. I'm still continuing my Marvel rewatch playlist. And of course, there is a huge back catalogue of over 100 videos now. So if anything takes your fancy, please check it out. If you can follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting movie news and trailers, including the Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings trailer. And of course, I always share new uploads on Twitter as well. Thank you for joining me. Take care.